但是離開父母有真多壓力。
But when you leave your parents, you also experience a lot of pressures.
瓦靠所瓦靠嘅人無喺你嘅邊頭，
People that you are depending on aren't around you.
支持嘅人無喺你嘅邊頭，
People who are supporting you aren't
你
with
自己
you.
咁嘅擔心。
And it is very natural for you to be a little worried.
你頭一擺你嗱最善良嘅時陣，我見你俾結婚最善良咯。
If you are a bride, say you're getting married today, you're the bride.
你驚咩？
Would you be a little bit
哎呀，我到離
afraid?
開我嘅父母啦。
You know, I've got to leave my parents
咁
now
我及這個男嘅成屋企啊，
and live together with this man.
這個人我唔知係好還是歹咧。
And I don't even know whether he's a good guy or not.
話口戰在未批，近咗呢度滯。
Externally, he looks very good, but once you get married, that's when you really know the
這個
person.
是 pressure，
Now, this is
但
pressure.
係種嘅 pressure 幫助你獨立 ，pressure 幫助你成長。
But pressure is going to help you to become independent. Pressure is going to help you to become mature.
1988年我一個人嚟菲律賓嘅時陣，
1988, when I first came to the Philippines by myself,
呢個時候只有26期出淡薄，20個月出淡薄，
that time I was only around a little over 25 years old.
大家未曉，
And I was ignorant of everything
做咧
else.
口讀聖經，但都未曉，
Apart from knowing how to read the Bible, I didn't know anything
未
else.
曉講話，
I didn't know the language.
未曉話車，
I didn't know how to drive.
未曉 computer。
And I didn't know how to use the
但
computer.
係嚟到這個新嘅環境嘅裏面，
And I come to this new environment.
但係上我有一個話課，
But during that time, I had one whom I can depend on.
我係牧師是我係話課，
My pastor was the person that I depend
我
on.
係牧師是簡單人，
My pastor was a Cantonese.
所以我及你講，你明白我及你講什麼話？
That is why he can understand my words.
我去特你食你家己出來，及你大家食。
And every day when I have my meals, I go to his home for the meals.
嗱，出去坐伊車，
When I go out, I hitch a ride with him.
有代志就去坐伊，
And if I've got any problem, I go see him.
伊就是我嘅話課。
And he is the one person that I rely or
但
depend
是
upon.
兩年以後，
But 2 years after,
伊離開菲律賓去美國。
he left the Philippines and went to the U.S.
我嫁嘅這個人喺菲律賓，
And I was all alone by myself in the Philippines.
其實我冇辦法，
And I had no way out.
我就家己靠上帝。
I had no other recourse but to learn to depend upon God.
我就係學習叫話車，
And the first thing that I did was to learn how to drive.
話車壓力真多，
You know, there's great pressure in learning how to drive.
話出機話到嚟，鬼算個揼。
As I drove out and I came back, I was sweating all over.
這是 pressure。
And that is pressure.
但是6年以後，
But 6 years after,
我這個牧師朋友對美國到嚟菲律賓，
this friend, this senior pastor of mine, came to the Philippines to visit.
我去載伊，
I went to pick him up
坐去食，
and I brought him out for
同
lunch.
你講話，
And we had a good
坐去嚟
conversation.
教會，
I brought him to
我要
church
教會。
and to see the church, to
所
visit
以我而
the
家
church.
講一句話
And，suddenly he told me,
你講國強啊，
says, Jeremiah,
我離開實在為到你嘅好處。
it is indeed good for me to leave the Philippines. It was good for you.
我講什麼意思？
And I asked him, what do you mean?
你講我嗱認為你去呢邊，
And he said that if I had stayed on in the
你
Philippines,
會見啊你。
you wouldn't be what you are today.
我少少回啊，實在回
And
啊。
I thought about it and I said, indeed, it is true.
咱所話嗰個冷無定係鼻頭嘅時
And
陣，
if the person that we rely or depend upon isn't around,
咱就獨立起嚟。
that is when we learn
一陣
independence.
水陣嘅樹，
A small tree,
永遠喺這個大當做嘅下卡，
that is forever behind a big tree.
呢陣樹真安全。
That small tree feels very safe.
當中嘅面對這個大當之後，佢承擔起嚟，
And this big tree is going to take care of all the problems for it.
呢陣樹未長大。
But that tree is not going to grow up.
呢個大當之後離開嘅時陣，
But once the big tree leaves,
你就面對家己嘅困難。
then it has to face its own difficulties.
太陽來了，河水來了，風來了，
Sun would shine and the wind and the rain would beat
哎
upon
呀，
it.
真大。
And there will be great
但
pressures.
呢陣樹慢慢長大起嚟，
But the tree is going to slowly grow up.
冇 pressure，
Without
真
pressures,
係生命未長大。
then our lives wouldn't grow.
我係好話受罪嘅，我真好受罪。
I know how to swim.
但是當我未考受罪就惡受罪，
But when I didn't know how to swim yet, I tried learning how to
唔
swim.
是真搞，但是會受淡薄。
Wasn't very good, but I just know how to swim a little bit.
但是發生咗一項大事，
But something happened.
對打以後，
That from then on,
我攞嚟攞度笑出。
I became better and better at
什麼大
swimming.
事呢？
What happened?
有一擺及幾個嘅朋友，有男嘅有女嘅，去香港一個 beach 去笑出。
One time I was together with a group of friends. There were boys and girls, and we went to a beach in Hong Kong to
香
swim.
港嘅 beach 是海裏面，啲戰人嘅所在，有一個咱就一個 platform 一個些所在。
And in the beach in Hong Kong, there is like this big platform in the middle of
咱
the
就
sea.
笑去外口，
We have to swim from the shore to the platform. And when we went there,
浪中人笑出去，
everyone just swam to that
男嘅
place.
出去，女嘅出去。
The boys swam towards that place, and the girls swam towards it as well.
其實我唔係正教笑，唔係正教笑出，
Actually, I wasn't really very good at
但是
swimming,
大家出去，
but everyone swam out.
我未追未出去。
So it was not possible for me not to swim
好特啲落香港嘅
across.
beach 嗰將你鎖圍起嚟。
But it was quite fortunate that there is this kind of a rope that serves as the perimeter
所以
in
我哋
the
即係鎖喺
beaches
邊
Hong
頭
Kong.
笑。
So I was swimming like beside the rope.
嗱無夠攰咧，立即嘅鎖跳石啫，
And if I get tired, I would just grab onto the rope and rest for a while.
結果笑出去。
And I was able to swim across.
但是問題嚟啦，
But here's the problem.
當浪中人哋即個 platform 跳石嘅時陣，
When everyone arrives at the platform and we're having a rest,
或者個男嘅起嚟，
there was a boy who stood up.
跌站在女嘅頭前跳落去。
And in front of so many girls, he jumped into the
哇！
water.
個女嘅發博㗎，
So all the girls clapped their hands.
然後第二男也是咁跳落去，
Second boy also stood up and jumped
直
into
接
the
這個
water.
男嘅跳落去，
And every one of them jumped into the water.
循過路尾一個，
And I was the last one.
不跳不跳，
Would I jump into the water or not?
呢陣13、14歲啊！
And I was like 13 or 14 years
啲
old.
女嘅頭前追跳落去，
And in front of so many girls, how can I not jump into the
冇
water?
跳到冇女朋友咯啊！
If I don't jump into the water, then I wouldn't have girlfriends.
所以死就死吧，
So I said, if I die, then I die.
跳落去，
I jumped into the water.
呢是壓力。
That was pressure.
男士女嘅我就未跳落去，
If it wasn't for the girls, I wouldn't jump into the water.
一跳落去嘅時陣，
As I jumped into the water,
樣樣都笑起嚟咯。
and I struggled to swim
哎
up.
呀，感謝主咯！
But thank God,
對打以後正教笑追咯，
from then on, I learned how to swim.
這是 pressure。
That's pressure.
個你壓力幫咗這個人長大，
Yes.
幫這個人成長。
You see, pressure helps a person to grow up, helps a person to become mature.
所以你唔當無快意都度壓力，
So you don't have to be unhappy when you experience pressures.
壓力有當幫助你，
Pressure is going to help you
讓你成長起來。
so that you may grow up.
壓力幫助你唔係是成長，幫助你成熟起來。
Pressure does not only help you to grow up, it also helps you to become mature.
成長是一個過程，
Now, maturity is a process.
當生命到某一個階段嘅時候，呢叫做成熟。
Our lives would reach a certain stage wherein we can say that is what maturity looks like.
壓力嘅好處是幫助你成熟嘅時間較緊。
What pressure does is to help or hasten the time of your maturity.
頂班你嗱煮古麥湯，還是古麥？
Used to be before that when you cook or when you boil some beef,
你需要差不多4個點鐘嘅時間。
you would require like 4 to 5 hours.
暫時呢個古麥未燶未好食，
Otherwise, the meat wouldn't be tender enough.
現在冇需要咯。
But these days, you don't need to do that
你
anymore.
基本一個 pressure cooker 去幫你處理，
You go and buy a pressure cooker,
1點鐘就了咯。
and in an hour, it's over.
因為裡面嘅 pressure 真大，
Because the pressure within is so great.
好這個嗰隻古麥真緊嘅時間就成熟起
It
來咯。
allows the meat to become tender and mature very quickly.
喺咱嘅生命嘅裡面，
Now, in our own lives,
壓力和咱嘅生命，無論是咱嘅家己生命、屬靈嘅生命，都真早緊成熟起來。
pressure allows our lives and our spiritual lives to mature very quickly.
你講主啊，好過吞論。
And you pray to the Lord saying, Lord, give me
那
patience.
無人反對你，你就學習吞論。
But if no one opposes you, then how can you learn
你
patience?
講主啊，好過溫柔。
And you pray, Lord, give me patience.
那無人攻擊你，你就溫
Or
柔。
give me gentleness. If no one attacks you, then how can you learn
上帝用
gentleness?
真罪辦法幫助你嘅屬靈嘅生命，慢慢嗰個成熟起來。
And God uses many different ways and means to help our spiritual lives to grow and mature.